Hello, and welcome to Hellenic Pagan's video. My name is Evan Rigakis, and I am your administrator. The topic of this video is going to be on magic and witchcraft in Hellenic paganism. It's been a subject that's come up many times in the group, and I just think I really need to address it. So, unfortunately, most Hellenic pagan groups tend to really actually look down on magic and witchcraft. They'll even insist that it absolutely plays no part in Hellenic paganism. It's a little bit of a dilemma there, because it really depends on what you mean by magic. But the magic and witchcraft that these groups are really meaning or talking about is the association and working with evil spirits. The evoking and controlling evil spirits, that whole control and bending to your will type of deal. They'll even go as far as applying this specifically to paganism, and they'll say, bending the gods to your will. Well, here's a few problems with that. Anyone who has worked with the gods can understand how utterly ridiculous that sounds. First of all, it is foolish and a recipe for a disaster to apply principles of one tradition in order to understand and explain another tradition. There's a very big difference between what a spirit is, evil, good, whatever, and a god. Two entirely different things, and of course, two entirely different ways of working with such things. Also, anyone with any knowledge about the gods knows that the gods cannot be bent to do our bidding. I mean, it's hard enough getting them to show up, let alone bend them to our will. Holy crap! I know it never happened to me, and I've never heard of anybody being able to bend Zeus to do my bidding. Oh, get me a cup of coffee. Yeah, Zeus, baby. No, don't happen. But they seem to think that could happen. Why else would they even think of that? Okay. Now, in reality, the Greeks have always been a very superstitious people, and as such, of course, they're bound to have like a wide assortment of very delicious things like witchcraft and magic and talismans and stuff. The initiation rites of the mysteries can easily be seen as magical practices. It was Orpheus that practiced magic by singing and playing his lyre, he would draw everything to him. They said animals and trees and even streams would bend to him, or be drawn to him, actually, not bent. There is a little bit of a difference, yeah. But most of all, all of the gods themselves were attracted, not bent, not, controlled and pulled in or anything like that. They were attracted by the music. Music soothes the savage beast. If it can soothe the savage beast, then guess what? Maybe it can even attract the gods on high, you know what I mean? Or the gods below. So, there are actually many instances of magical practices, most of which have been collected in a book that I found. It's entitled Magika, Hiera, or Magika, Hiera. Literally means holy magic, or the holies of magic. So that's the actual title, but then it goes as Ancient Greek Magic and Religion, and it's edited by Christopher Faraone and Dirk Obbink. I really don't know if I'm pronouncing that stuff right or not. I'm sorry if I'm not pronouncing that right. It was published in 1997 by Oxford University Press. I looked it up online and it is available, so you could find it on Amazon. So, as far as witchcraft is concerned, there really is no Greek word for witchcraft. There are some words that just cannot be translated into Greek, and vice versa. They're just not translatable. And one of those words is witchcraft. Instead, Greeks will generally translate that as magia or magia, magic. Magick, if you prefer. Those Greeks, though, who actually know a little bit more about witchcraft will go as far as to call it laiki magia, which means folk magic. A witch is translated with the feminine term magisa, or magisa. It's the feminine to magus or magos, which is magus, magician or whatever. So again, she's a magicianess, or I don't know how that would work. It is important to understand this if you are to look for witches and witchcraft with the ancient Greeks. Since there wasn't a term for witchcraft, you have to put it really to the test. And so then we test this out with one of the most famous witches, Medea. In Greek, it's actually pronounced Medea. Medea. In English translations of the stories, she's called a witch. So if we look to the Greek original text in Greek, we should see that she is called Magisa or Magisa, because that's the word they use for witch. But guess what? You don't find that. No, actually, you would think it would be Magisa, but we would be wrong. And surprised to find she is called a word that translates to pharmacist. No shit, pharmacist. She's not a witch, she's a pharmacist. Why? Because she deals with brews and teas or potions or that type of thing. So it really tells us that witches were seen more as folk healers, or even what we would call a herbalist or a pharmacologist, you know. In the rural villages in Greece, up until about my parents' generation, these rural villages had a witch of the village, and they would call them mami. That's how they called them, mami. A mami is they didn't have doctors around, and to go for, you got a tummy ache, you're not going to go 50 miles to find a doctor. You would go to the local mami, and she would fix you up a little, for a stomach, I'm sure she would give you a little bit of chamomile or chamomile, with a little bit of honey, and they would settle your stomach and you'd move on. Let me see, did I say that all? Yeah. Okay. So, the village mummy was your only alternative, really. I mean, it was a long way to go. I mean, this was the time before there were any vehicles or any cars or trucks at the time, or even tractors for that matter, out in really rural villages. I mean, out of society and forgotten type of deal. So to go to the nearest doctor would mean a whole day's trip on a donkey, or maybe even a cart, a horse-drawn cart or something. So your mommy would take care of you. Your mommy, right? Mommy. It sort of gives you a little whatever. Okay. This tells us that witches were seen more as folk healers. I did say that. But folk magic was used for other things as well, besides healing. And everyone used it. You didn't have to be an actual witch to use these things. For instance, Greeks have something called miasma, or mati, glossophagia. Mati means evil eye. And glossophagia means that somebody's talking about you, and somehow it affects your energy, and you have a super headache, or you have nightmares, or all sorts of bad things, usually headaches. So there were several techniques of lifting this evil eye. off a person, they would call it a xematisma, which just means eye removal. That's translation. Sounds pretty gross and creepy, but eye removal. Not literal. Not literal. Do not remove eyeballs. Warning. But xematisma, or removing the eye, was like a banishing or a cleansing. So there are also what I would define as spells. My former mother-in-law, as a matter of fact, she wasn't psychic, she wasn't a mummy, she wasn't a puppy, or she wasn't anything, although she was just an average lady, and she lost something one day, and she looked all over the house for it, and she couldn't find it. And that night, she told me what she was going to do, and it flipped me out because, of course, I've been into magic since I was, before I can even remember myself. So when I heard what she was going to do, I said, wow, wait a minute, that's a spell. So what did she do? Okay, whatever she lost something. I don't remember exactly what she lost, but it involves baking a loaf of bread. Yeah, baking a loaf of bread, and you're baking it in the name of the god or saint, because of course the Christians took that as well. But originally it was a god's name, and the name was Fanis. Fanis means the shedder of light, the revealer. So it makes sense that you would use the revealer to find the item you lost. So when she said that she was baking a loaf of bread in the name of the god, it really meant she also, while she was making it, she was muttering some prayer to Saint Fanis. So take out the prayer, put in the invocation. There you go. That's Greek. Okay. So, but what it also involved was actually writing the name Fanis on the loaf of bread. Either used, just with butter, write the name on the loaf or on the dough as you're putting it in before you bake it, or just cut it in, But she would write the name on the loaf, bake it, when the bread is ready, you cut yourself a slice and eat it, repeating in your head the invocation, and then in bed, as you fall asleep, you repeat the same invocation. In the morning, what would happen? Well, you were supposed to. Yeah, he would come into your dream and reveal where the lost item is, and that would happen that night. But whether or not you actually got the dream or not, in the morning, the rest of the bread she would share it with neighbors, with friends, with family, with anybody, and she would share the whole loaf. Eventually, she did get a dream. It took about a couple of times, but she did it. And I was like, oh, I was like, wait a minute, that really worked? Who am I to question it? But I did witness it. So, but there is all sorts of these little, shall we say, spells, you know, with many of the people there, and where you're going to find it is in their folklore. The bread spell, the finding spell, sorry, that I just explained. I write here, you can try it up to 3 times in total. You wait about a week, and then you can do it again, and then do it a 3rd time, and wait a week, you know, for the 3rd time. And if the item is not found, I asked her, what happens then? She goes, then maybe it's either unrecoverable, like it got destroyed, or it's not there for you to find anymore, or it's been stolen. And that's the explanation she gave me, so I give to you. But I think what it's all really pointing to is that magic and witchcraft is very much part of Hellenic paganism. It runs, I mean, these are things that have been around since before there was the written word, for God's sakes. You know, so I mean, these are, what I'm thinking is it would be really cool if some bright young Greek would go around, or even a Xeno who knows Greek very, very well, and go around to all the villages throughout Greece and collect all these little spells and put them all into a little book, like a little grimoire, maybe, you know, a grimoire of Hecate or something. That'd be really cool. I don't know. I have a few, but not enough to make a whole book out of it or anything like that. But do check out that book that I did, the Magika Hiera. I'm sure you'll find a lot of nice little things to study. But let's just put this to rest then. Yes, in Hellenic paganism, a lot of our practices can be construed as witchcraft or as magic, because we do our own ceremonies, we do our own rituals. We're not like the Christians that need a priest to do their things. We do them ourselves. And just because we do them ourselves doesn't mean we're doing magic, necessarily in that demonized way that they portray magic to be. Magic is not demonized, should not be demonized. So, that's the poop. I hope you found this informative. If you have any questions, please write them in the comments. I will put the book in the description below as well, so you can look it up exactly the way you can find it. Or maybe I'll just find a link and do that, or something like that. But there you have it. Okay, people. Have a great day and keep safe.